come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Welcome to Areva Martin in real time. It's Avi Bernard in for Areva Martin tonight. Let's get you caught up. The Senate failed yesterday to begin debate on President Joe Biden's national security package, with Republicans unifying to filibuster it due to a lack of immigration limits that they demanded to be a condition for their support. The vote was 49-51, with Republicans voting against moving forward with the bill, along with independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who has said he opposes giving aid to Israel unconditionally unless Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government changes its practice, which he has called immoral and in violation of international law. The failed vote leaves U.S. aid to Ukraine and Israel on life support on Capitol Hill, even as Biden makes a dire plea for approving it to stop Russia from conquering Ukraine. A New York man who filed to run for ousted Representative George Santos's seat in the House of Representatives was found guilty of several charges stemming from the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. A federal grand jury found Philip Sean Grillo guilty earlier this week of a total of 5 charges, including obstruction of an official proceeding, which is a felony. Grillo entered the Capitol building on January 6th through a broken window carrying a megaphone. Speaking of George Santos's seat, New York Democrats have selected former Rep. Tom Suozzi to be their party's nominee in the upcoming special election to replace former Rep. George Santos. Nassau County and Queens County leaders gathered today and voted for Suozzi, who was widely expected to emerge as the party's nominee. He previously represented the competitive 3rd District, which is based on Long Island, before leaving Congress last year to run unsuccessfully for governor. The housing market might be turning around for frustrated potential home buyers as mortgage rates dipped and listings rose, according to the real estate brokerage Redfin. The interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is down to 7%, according to government-backed lender Fannie Mae. It peaked at just above 8% in early October, and that was a 23-year market high. In response to that change, Redfin says mortgage applications are up 15% since early November, when they hit a 28-year low. A Texas judge today granted an emergency order allowing a pregnant woman whose fetus has a fatal diagnosis to get an abortion in the state. Late last month, 31-year-old Kate Cox of Dallas, who's a mother of 2, is also about 20 weeks pregnant. She found out that her developing fetus has trisomy 18, which is a rare chromosomal disorder likely to cause stillbirth or the death of the baby shortly after it's born. Texas law prohibits almost all abortions with limited exceptions. So on behalf of Cox, her husband, and her doctor, lawyers with the Center for Reproductive Rights filed a request for a temporary restraining order that would block the state's abortion bans in Cox's case and enable her to terminate her pregnancy. House Republicans today released the text of a resolution that would authorize their impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Multiple House leaders have said the chamber is expected to vote on the resolution next week. It is scheduled to go before the House Rules Committee on Tuesday morning, meaning the earliest it would come up for a vote is likely Wednesday of next week, which is the day before their last day in session of the year. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy's announcement that he would resign from Congress at the end of the year throws his own political future and the fates of vulnerable California Republicans into murky territory. Although his resignation comes as a disappointment to those Republicans, it is not a surprise even to his loyal supporters in Congress. McCarthy is well liked in his Central Valley district, but he would have faced a brutal campaign of attacks over a dysfunctional Congress and his failure to rein in far-right members of his own party. And Donald Trump said Tuesday he would not be a dictator, quote unquote, except for day one. if he returns to office in 2025. In a town hall with Fox News' Sean Hannity, Trump was asked whether he would disavow taking retributive action against all his enemies if he re-entered the Oval Office. He initially didn't want to answer, but when he was asked the second time, he said he would only be dictator on the first day of his second term, whatever that means. And as at-home holiday parties are on many people's calendars right now, germ-conscious hosts are faced with the dilemma, should I require guests to take off their shoes at the door, especially if the gathering is a cocktail party or a formal attire gathering, or the guest is a stylish shoe-holic? But one expert says we can track all sorts of bacteria on shoes, and the one they're most concerned about is E. coli, and that causes severe abdominal cramps, bloody diarrhea, and vomiting. There's been studies that swab the bottom of shoes, and something like 99% of shoes test positive for fecal matter. So let's have a discussion about whether you require people to take off their shoes when they enter your house, because I know I do. So when we come forward, we're going to talk about all of today's trending news and highlights with our contributor for the day, that is Isaac Wilson, who is chair of the Democratic Party of Florence County, South Carolina. We'll get into the conversation when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, Black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any Black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
You've heard the buzz about IT and cybersecurity and AI, right? Why not prepare for a career in these fields and take advantage of the high demand? You could enjoy a more rewarding and recession-resistant lifestyle. Just train in a few short months at My Computer Career, no experience necessary. Already in IT? Skill up for positions employers need to fill. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. That's mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're back on Areva Martin in real time. And I am joined by Isaac Wilson, who is the chair of the Democratic Party of Florence County, South Carolina. Isaac, always appreciate you joining us. How are you today?
I'm good, man. Good. Glad to be back in the house here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have a lot to talk about today, per usual. Not really any slow news days happening lately, but
Not at all.
first, I want to talk about Republicans unifying yesterday to refuse Joe Biden's national security package. So he is trying to get aid for Israel and Ukraine, and Republicans in return, they want concessions from Democrats on immigration. And Democrats have already given some concessions. For example, they're not requiring that Dreamers be taken care of as part of this legislation, which is a big deal for Democrats, as it should be. And Republicans, as they do, they always want more and they ask for unreasonable things. So what do you make of this fight in the Senate? And this is the Senate. This is the less crazy of the two congressional bodies. The House, as we know, is a complete zoo. It's a circus. Anywhere you got Mike Johnson as your speaker, and anywhere where Jim Jordan can come close to being speaker is an absolute zoo. So the Senate is the more reasonable of the two, but the bar is low, admittedly. So the Senate is not moving forward with this bill so far to give aid to Ukraine and Israel, and this is really dangerous stuff. Obviously, we know what's going on between Israel and Hamas is no joke. It's been all out war there, and the people of Gaza are suffering. And so that aid is obviously important, but also, to me, I mean, this situation in Ukraine is if we don't give them money soon, it's potentially a seismic shift in the entire world, because Russia could take over that country, and the only way that Ukraine has been able to prevent that from happening so far is through the aid of the United States and other Western nations. So what do you make of this tactic of the GOP, and how dangerous is it in your opinion?
It's very dangerous. The president alluded to yesterday that if they allow Putin and his regime to take over Ukraine and win, Putin won't just stop there. He will try to take over something else, and it becomes a bigger problem. And we don't want troops on the ground. But if he goes after a NATO country, then America has to do their part, and there might be troops on the ground because they're part of NATO. So we have that to actually dive into and understand that's why you need the funding. The other thing is the GOP, they're just trying to rally right now. They've been so divided, and so they had to find something to come together on. And I think this was probably still the wrong thing to come together on. You have to give funding to them, and for what it's worth, people like Lindsey Graham is for it. So you have those moderate. Well, I wouldn't call him a moderate, but right now he's seeming like he's a moderate. And they're not the crazy ones anymore. They are actually saying, let's fund. Nikki Haley's saying, let's fund them. We got to. And so it's just, I think they deal in chaos, and that's where they thrive, or they think they thrive. And I think they're just trying to create chaos around us and make Joe Biden look bad. And it's really not working because they're more center politicians are saying, no, we're with Joe Biden on this one. So, yeah, that's not working. So Republicans just have to, they have to do something better and make sense of what they're doing. And right now it's not making sense. So I hope the people and the country is watching, and they're not blaming Joe Biden for this, and they're blaming Republicans, as that's where the blame should be.
Yeah, and one of the people who voted against moving forward with the bill was Independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who obviously is a progressive. He technically is an independent senator, but he is very much in practice a Democrat. He caucuses with Democrats, and he is one of the most progressive members in Congress. And his sticking point is he doesn't want to give aid to Israel unconditionally, because he wants Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government to change his practice for what he calls immoral and in violation of international law. And so what do you make of Bernie Sanders' stance here of voting against the bill for that reason?
Kind of get it. I think because you don't want Israel to keep killing people, innocent people. And so I don't want to give aid and give funding and be a part of it. I feel like America, you give money just to Israel and they get to go blow up kids and families. We would be a part of that problem. And so I think it does have to come with conditions saying, hey, you can't just be going and blowing up buildings, killing these innocent children and these families. These are people too. And that's where that two-state solution, those talks happen. So Netanyahu has to come up with a better plan of just shooting people. So I understand where he's coming from. Now, unlike Republicans, they're just saying, don't give them funding. Like, we're not a bank. We're not, whatever. So he has a valid argument there.
Yeah, no, I can't say I totally disagree with that because I believe it is a condition for every other nation we provide aid to, where we do expect that aid to be used under certain conditions. We don't give any other nation carte blanche to just use the money we give them or the resources we give them for anything. And it is an atrocity that's happening in Gaza. And it's very sad to see innocent people being killed wherever that happens. And to be clear, I've been against innocent people being casualties anywhere. Obviously, the brutal terrorist attack from Hamas, which is a terrorist organization on October 7th in Israel, was completely wrong. And Israel had a right to respond in an appropriate fashion. But I do think that inappropriate fashion does not have to involve civilians at this scale. It just doesn't have to. And I don't know what the best solution is, but the solution can't be killing civilians. So again, if you're killing innocent people, you're wrong. And the U.S., I understand why Senator Bernie Sanders doesn't want to be on board with that. And so we're going to have to see what happens here in the next few days, but Ukraine needs that money. Ukraine needs that money and they need it now. And so I hope that that somehow the Senate can find their way to at least giving that money to Ukraine and providing money to Israel as well, as long as it is under certain stipulations. Although both of those things look very much in doubt right now.
But it's crazy that now they want to talk about what to do at the border. But what is their plan? What is the Republicans' plan for the border? Why are you putting so much pressure on Democrats when we've been at the front line of border security for how many years? But you guys, they won't approve our plan, but they don't have a plan themselves. So to say something about Border Patrol right now at this given moment isn't the time to do that. But what is your plan if we are going to do that? Give us your plan. They don't have a plan. So let's fund Ukraine, and then let's go to the House floor, let's go to the Senate floor, and let's talk about getting a real packet together for border security, and then we can pass that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Democrats aren't against border security. They're willing to work with Republicans on this, but Republicans just continue to ask for unreasonable concessions as they do. They're going to keep going further and further because they don't actually want to get things done. That's not what they want. They want to cause chaos, especially this new wave of Republicans. And it's just it's horrible that they're able to just handcuff anything getting done like this. And as you said, that they don't have a plan for the border, and not having a plan never stopped them before. As you remember, as well as anyone, Isaac, it was repeal and replace for Obamacare, repeal and replace. But then, okay, well, what are you going to replace it with? Oh, well, we're working on it, and they never really came up with anything. They came up with some horrible bills that nobody thought were good, that wouldn't have worked, that would have never passed, and that was their ideal of repeal and replace. And then eventually they just said, you know what? Let's just repeal it. We don't have to have a plan. Let's just get rid of it. We don't like that Obama has this signature accomplishment, regardless of whether it's helping people, regardless of whether it's helping people in their own constituencies. They don't care about that. They don't care about people's lives being better. They care about power and money, and that's it. Power and money. People don't matter to them. And so they not having a plan for them never stopped them before. But speaking of people who don't have a plan, George Santos, your boy, he was removed from Congress finally, and a man who had filed to run for his seat he was just found guilty of several charges stemming from the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. So he was found guilty of felonies. He's the kind of guy that you would think would want to fill George Santos' seat, but he's not going to get that seat now. And New York Democrats have selected their candidate, who was also a former member of Congress, and he stepped away from his seat to run for governor, and of course he lost, but now they've nominated him to get back in Congress in George Santos' seat. So I just want to get your thoughts first, Isaac, on George Santos finally being removed. I mean, it was a long time. You know, we knew that this dude was crooked. We knew he had no business being in Congress at all, and he refused to leave. Obviously, that's the new Republican thing. You know, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm being persecuted, yada, yada, yada. And so they had this first vote in which it failed to remove him, because even some Democrats didn't vote for it because they thought, at least let this House Ethics Committee finish, let it come through. And once we have some kind of findings from that investigation, then we can remove him and feel like we were justified in doing so. But the second vote, it did pass, including with support of many Republicans, and now he's out. So what are your thoughts on George Santos finally being removed, Isaac?
I think it's great. I think he should have been removed once they found out that he was lying through their own investigation. You didn't have to have a conviction in a court because you had already had your own conviction in doing your own investigation. So the fact that it took this long is crazy. And I know they're counting votes. I get it. But him being out of office lets the people know that you have to walk with a certain standard when you're being elected to the Senate and being elected to Congress, period. There is a certain character that you must uphold. And just like Donald Trump, people went to the polls and they said, no, we cannot have a president like this. So we're going to oust you. And Donald Trump should be able to run for president, being that his character is more jacked up than Santos. So it was a great day for America. It was a great day that Republicans stood up. That was the day they put the institution and put America first.
And so now with George Santos being removed, and so Republicans' majority goes
He's telling
down.
It all, too. He's telling all the business.
Oh, yeah. He is not playing any games. He's on Cameo, coming for everybody. You know, as long as you drop him a couple of notes, he will say whatever you want him to say. And his moral compass is pointing every direction. He don't care what he does. He don't care what he has to say, as long as you're giving him a few coins. But do you think that majority going down by one for the Republicans? They had a 4-seat majority. They could lose 4 votes in anything that they were trying to pass. Now they can only lose 3. So do you think that's why they were trying to put it off for so long? Obviously, in addition to needing to have more evidence in their mind, but even people like Speaker Mike Johnson, they voted against removing him. And so do you think that is because they just were desperately trying to protect their majority to the best of their ability?
Oh, definitely. They use the conviction saying that, hey, we don't want to set precedent because that means that we can oust anybody at any time. And, yeah, they were counting votes. It was all about the votes. We need this count. So let's let them stay here until he's convicted. Now, whenever that happens, is that going to happen in March? Is that going to happen in April? Is it going to happen, whatever? So let's prolong this thing as long as we can because we need his vote. And that's what that was about. So I'm glad those Republicans had the balls to stand up and say, we don't care what you say. He needs to go because this isn't right. He's lied. And he took money from his own counterpart. So yes, they were trying their best for votes to keep him in there. So, but I'm glad they made the right decision.
Yeah, and what Isaac just mentioned there is one of George Santos's Republican colleagues in the House. His name is escaping me right now, but one of his Republican colleagues in the House said, "Hey, George Santos scammed my mom out of $5,000." And this is his colleague in the House of Representatives, his Republican colleague in the House of Representatives. So just hilarious stuff, man. And George Santos, what a character, man. We should make Republicans remember this dude for eternity. But speaking of Republicans,
he's gonna run again, though.
I hope so. I hope he does.
Yeah.
I really hope he does. But speaking of Republicans who are no longer going to be in Congress, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced that he would resign from Congress at the end of this year, which is just a few weeks away. And so what do you make of this announcement by Kevin McCarthy, considering he was just the Speaker of the House, a few weeks ago?
I think Kevin McCarthy is understanding that they will probably never get back to the Republican House that he knew. I think he realized that he doesn't have the power to change anything, and he wouldn't have power any longer. And I think he wants to be on the right side of history. So I think he's trying to get out. He'll probably do some things. He'll probably write a book, tell-all book, and try to be on the right side of history. But it's time for him to go and find something else to do. And I wish him all the best. But it's a sad day for them.
Yeah, this is definitely a bed that he made, and he made it nice and tight. He made it like those hotel room beds that you can't pull the sheet out. Even no matter what you try to do, no matter how much you've been working out, you cannot pull that sheet out. That's how tight Kevin made this bed for himself, and that's why he deserves to be removed. And oh man, and Liz Cheney, she came out with her new book this week, and I
love her. I love her.
Verbally thrashed him. Oh my God. She says he made the wrong decision. Every chance he had a chance to make a good decision, he made the wrong decision. And I just, as much as I can like a Republican, that's how much I like Liz Cheney, because obviously I don't like any of her policies. She still is a very conservative person, but at least she's willing to stand up for what she believes to be right, and she's not going to just do whatever anyone else says. She's not going to do something just because it's good for her career. She's going to do what she believes to be right because she's principled. You got to respect somebody with principles, and so I definitely do respect Rep. Liz Cheney. When we come forward, though, I want to talk about some good news. The housing market might be turning around. I just want to get your take on why that might be good news for Joe Biden. So the housing market mortgage rate has finally, or the interest rate rather, has finally dipped down to about 7%. We'll talk about that and all the rest of the day's trending news when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy Kwanzaa from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A multi-million-dollar lawsuit is expected to go after a West Alabama officer facing police brutality allegations. A viral video circulated the internet showing a white female officer deploying a stun gun on a handcuffed black man in Reform over the weekend. The officer is also heard using explicit language directed at 24-year-old Micah Washington. The officer has been placed on administrative leave, and Washington's lawyer is planning to file a $20 million lawsuit on his behalf. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is making another trip to Washington, D.C. in a push to try to get more federal help on the migrant crisis. He is scheduled to meet with congressional leaders and federal officials and attend the White House holiday party. Adams, who is black, has been very critical of Biden administration officials for not taking enough action on the migrant crisis, which is costing New York City a lot of money. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Good news for Culver City's 405 South at the Washington-Culver Boulevard split. Accident's been cleared. However, heavy traffic in recovery is breaking apart for over 20 minutes from Wilshire Boulevard. Your drive on the 405 South from West LA to Seal Beach right now is over 110 minutes. Culver City also is experiencing some heavy traffic flow on the 405 South from Mission Hills 118 through Sepulveda Pass into West LA's 10 up to 35 minutes. Also, watch for a slight slowdown in Fullerton's 57 South between Yorba Linda Boulevard and the 522 freeway.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? The accident guys have helped over 5,000 injured clients with an impressive winning record.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
From the very stupid department, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is thinking about asking Florida legislators for $1 million to help file a lawsuit against the NCAA. DeSantis is upset that undefeated Florida State was not selected among the 4 schools for the college football playoffs. The committee chose Michigan, Alabama, Texas, and Washington. There are tons of better reasons for DeSantis to use $1 million in his state. He can start by increasing resources for African American studies in Florida schools. That would be a far more worthy game plan for DeSantis. The NBA offered a pretty nice incentive to players to be excited about the in-season tournament. The team that wins the title, each player gets $500,000. That takes holiday bonuses to a whole new level. The championship game is Saturday night in Vegas. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Following the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. 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 Follow the leader.
Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Go to DonorsChoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, music, and more. Learn more at DonorsChoose.org.
Donors Choose. Support a classroom. Build a future.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're back on Areva Martin in real time. Avi Bernard in for Areva Martin today. And we are joined by Isaac Wilson, who is the chair of the Democratic Party of Florence County, South Carolina. All right, I want to talk about some good news, not only for the Biden administration, but also for people in general, for the economy, for our economy. The housing market might be turning around, it looks like. So mortgages have ballooned really out of control. It's 8-9%. And obviously some of it depends on your credit, but this was just a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, it was about 3%. And the amount that the difference between 3% and 7% on the amount of your mortgage payment is really insane. And so now that rates are coming back down, I think this is one of those key markers that when people are talking about the economy, they say, yeah, well, the economy may be getting better, inflation may be slowing down, or it may have stopped altogether, but I'm not seeing it in my life. This is one of those markers where this is where something that people can see and feel themselves. People can experience themselves. Okay, now interest rates are going back down. Now I can actually buy a home. This is a huge deal. So Isaac, I wanted to ask you, do you think this is a big deal for the Biden administration? And is this a sign, do you think, of potentially the economy getting back to a place where Biden can actually use it to his advantage in next year's campaign?
Certainly. Housing market seemingly turning around means that inflation gets to come down, right? Because it wouldn't happen. We do understand, as Biden has told you when he first got in office, that, hey, we're going to have some tough times. Donald Trump really messed our economy up. So we're going to still feel some trickle effect from that. And he told you that eventually it would change, it would turn around with the investments that he's made. So now when people start to see that this thing is now trending upward for them and they can put some money in their pockets, you can have young people want to buy homes. This will be better for cities and small towns where people are saying, hey, interest rates are just too high. I can't buy a house. You'll start to see rent coming down. Because rent skyrocketed because people weren't buying houses because interest rates was high, so people skyrocketed rent. So all of this plays in this little circle, and the housing market just makes everything just better. So we definitely can use that in the campaign efforts for Joe Biden, and I hope he starts to use it soon and says something about it soon, so people can start to look at it and see the trend.
Yeah, especially if the trend continues. If these rates, if these interest rates continue to go down, I think it'll be a huge indicator for the economy and how much better the economy is getting. And once again, one of those tangible things, one of those tangible markets that people can actually feel like, yes, this is something that makes a big difference in my life. And that's something that I think can sway voters and help President Biden. And a note of good news, it's not every day we get to have back-to-back positive news stories, and this is positive to a certain extent because sadly, this woman did have to terminate her pregnancy because of an abnormality with developing fetus. But a 31-year-old mother in the Dallas area in Texas, mother of two, she was 20 weeks pregnant, and she found out that her developing fetus has trisomy 18, which is a rare chromosomal disorder likely to cause stillbirth or death of the baby shortly after it's born. And so a Texas judge today granted an emergency order allowing her to get an abortion in the state in Texas, where almost all abortions are now illegal. So this is one of those really conservative states, even though I know Democrats have hoped to flip it blue, but haven't made much progress seemingly. And so there is a very strict abortion ban in place in Texas. And a judge gave this woman a restraining order so that she was able to get to terminate a pregnancy. And this is the thing that we're talking about. This is why it's important to have reproductive rights, because it's not like this woman doesn't want this baby. She has 2 children already. She just found out at 20 weeks that the fetus has a severe chromosomal disorder, and it's gonna almost certainly cause this baby to be stillborn or to die shortly after birth, and probably put the mother at risk too. So this is why it's important to have protections for women to make decisions over their own bodies. And if not for this restraining order, this woman would not be able to get this abortion. Maybe she doesn't have the means to travel to a nearby state that does have protections for women to get abortions. So this is a really important example of why these reproductive rights are important, and I'm glad this Texas judge decided to step in. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the situation.
It's definitely a great day in America to where we can save someone's life. and it goes to show that we shouldn't even be in the position, because I think women are capable of saying what they want to do with their bodies, and in times like this, to make it difficult for them, I think it is nonsense. And you still have an attorney general who's saying that it still doesn't absolve them from going after her. It still doesn't absolve them from statute of limitations for it. So it still is nonsense after a judge who probably was Trump appointed is saying, whoa, 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 this lady needs this, or she's going to die. So, like I said, it's a great day for America. It's a great day for women. It's a huge example, like you said, to let people see this is why we shouldn't be making decisions for women. This is why you cannot have abortion bans just completely just put up in every state or whatnot. Women have the right to make choices for their bodies. She have a choice to make this decision without it becoming a news fiasco, without it being on the front page of every newspaper. This should have been a decision that she should have been able to make on her own with her and her doctor. And this is a prime example of why.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of having agency over our own affairs, Donald Trump said that he will not take away our agency. He will not be a dictator if he returns to the presidency in 2025, except for day one. So this man really had the nerve to go ahead and say this. He said, "No, I won't be a dictator." This was during a town hall with Fox News' Sean Hannity, and he was asked whether he would take retributive action against all of his enemies if he got back into the Oval Office, which he's already said he will do. He's already said it many times. He's practically running on the fact that he'll do that. That's basically the whole reason he wants to be president again, is so that he can take revenge on everyone who he's ever felt slighted by. But he actually said on day one, yeah, I'll be a dictator, but the rest of the time I won't. And he claimed that it was only for two specific reasons, because he wants to close the border and to drill. But it's I can't believe the things that this dude says out loud and that people allow him to get away with. Will this and President Biden, to his credit, has taken this statement and is using it, because this is the kind of thing that I think Joe Biden needs to talk about. These are the kind of statements that needs to be highlighted. This is an ad waiting to happen. But right. Do you think this will affect Trump negatively?
No. I think it won't. I think it plays right into the hands of their plan that they have. They have the mandate for leadership. You know, the conservative promise, the Project 2025 is outlining what they are going to do. And then you had the guy that was on Steve Bannon's talk show. He told you again too. He said, "Hey, we're coming in there. We're coming after people, coming after everybody that said, you know, such and such about Donald Trump or said such and such about Republicans." So they're telling you what they're going to do. So Donald Trump saying that he wants to be a dictator on day one, or is going to be a dictator on day one, it's nothing new to the American people. That's what he wants. And I think that's what the Republicans want, him to be a dictator. And I would believe that if Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States, it's going to be hard for Donald Trump to leave, and he will try to dismantle the Constitution to where he can stay in office and doesn't have to leave. So this is right up his alley, not shop. Classic Donald Trump.
Yeah, and you know, to that last point, people were surprised when Liz Cheney, you know, as she's kind of making the rounds for her book tour this week. People are surprised that she said she thought Donald Trump would not leave office if he got elected again. And people were surprised by that. And she's surprised that they're surprised, because she says he already tried to do it. He already showed us that he's going to try to stay in power. He lost the election and he tried to stay in power by any means necessary, not just by spreading propaganda that the election was stolen, but by actually trying to make a plan to get fake electors in there, to steal the election, to physically steal it, and to have the military take over voting machines. This dude was trying to do it. So of course he would try to stay in power. I don't understand. Also, I agree with Liz Cheney on this. I don't understand how people can be surprised by that notion, or that how they could see it any differently, because he just tried to do this. But just absolutely unbelievable stuff from Donald Trump, saying, "No, I would not be a dictator except on day one." So when we come forward, Isaac, I want to talk about a couple of political issues. Firstly, I want to ask if you require people to remove their shoes when they come to your house. That's the one thing I really want to talk about, because this is something that's been important to me for a long time. I just saw some research today that I want to talk about, that if you didn't hear at the beginning of the show, I mentioned, but there's a percentage of shoes that when they are tested, a certain percentage of them should test positive for fecal material on the bottom of those shoes. And it's a very high percentage. And that means that when people walk into your house, if they have fecal matter on their shoes, what do you think gets onto your floor? So we're going to talk about this when we come forward. Also, Dave Chappelle is coming out with a new Netflix special on New Year's. It's either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And so, New Year's Eve. It's New Year's Eve. So are you going to watch Dave Chappelle's special? And I don't think there's no wrong answer here. You don't have to. I'm not saying Chappelle should have been canceled or should be canceled. I just know that there's been a lot of controversy over statements he's made, in particular in regards to the trans community. So we're going to talk about Dave Chappelle's new special, whether you think you would watch it, whether I think I would watch it, and whether or not you take your shoes off, or whether you make people take their shoes off when they go into your residence. We'll talk about that when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Areva time is the right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with Kate Luzio, former banking executive and now owner of Luminary, who partnered with Chase for this tour. She makes it her business to build community for business owners.
Yeah, so I was a banker for 20 years before I decided to become an entrepreneur. 7 of those years were actually at JP Morgan Chase. One of the biggest things that I had going into my entrepreneurial journey was a big background in banking.
So what advice are you giving business owners looking for financial backing today?
So Chase brings in so much knowledge and the opportunity to understand what financial tools are out there for business owners to build, grow, and scale their business. A lot of business owners will say, well, I need to get a loan immediately. Well, you wouldn't just lend money to your friend if you didn't know why they needed it. I tell every business owner, you need a business plan, you need financial projections, you need a banker. Because you have to start building a relationship with a banker so that they get comfortable with how you're going to build that business and so that they can eventually support you in different ways.
Makes sense. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're back on Areva Martin in real time. Avi Bernard in for Areva Martin today. All right, Isaac. We're joined by Isaac Wilson, chair of the Democratic Party of Florence County, South Carolina. So, Isaac, this is the topic. We've been talking about a whole bunch of important subjects today, per usual. But this is the topic I've wanted to talk to you about most. This is the topic of whether or not people should have to remove their shoes when they come into your house. So I have long been an advocate of making people take their dusty shoes off when they come into your house because they're walking everywhere. You don't know what they're stepping in. Shoes are for outside. They're not for inside. And this goes back to for many years when I've had tiny apartments, now to being a homeowner. I mean, it doesn't matter where you live. It's if you have people coming into your house, they need to take their shoes off. And this study today that came out in CNN really confirmed what I had been thinking for a long time. Now, one expert says that we can track all sorts of bacteria on shoes, but certainly the one they're most concerned about is E. coli. And E. coli is very dangerous. They cause severe abdominal cramps, bloody diarrhea, and vomiting. And so the percentage of shoes, according to this expert, that test positive for fecal material when they do a swab, a cotton swab at the bottom of the shoe, or a swab at the bottom of the shoe, 99% of the shoes tested positive for fecal matter. And to simplify things, they tested positive for doo-doo. And so that doesn't mean everyone walks around stepping in a pile of doo-doo. It just means that when you're walking around throughout the course of your day, there are residuals of doo-doo all over the place because dogs go doo-doo, other animals, humans. And so I just want to get your thoughts on this, Isaac, and whether or not you've been making people take your shoes off, or if you're going to be from now on making people take your shoes off, because I don't see how, after hearing that, you can't be in one of those two camps.
Well, I don't currently tell people they got to take their shoes off. People are, but I have a bar in my basement, so okay. People really don't ever really come into my house. It's just me. The people that come in here are like really, really close and they're really family, but I never let them take the shoes off. But like you said, hearing that, I think I might start telling them to take off the shoes. But it's kind of weird saying, "Hey, grandma, you got to take the shoes off before you come in here." Hey, mom, you got to take the shoes off. It's kind of weird, but I think I might have to start.
Yeah, it is a little awkward at first, but really, honestly, Isaac, it's not that awkward because all you do is you say, "Hey, mom, would you mind removing your shoes?" And it's just you ask really politely, because I do it. I tell my mom, I ask my mom to remove her shoes, and people become accustomed to it really fast. And then if they forget, "Oh, would you mind taking off your shoes?" And then if they ever ask you why, just tell them why, and they'll be like, "Oh, really?" And then they're gonna start making people take their shoes off when they come to their place. I promise you, it is. I mean, especially when I had a baby. I mean, this dude is crawling around on the floor with his hands. You don't want, So you don't want that stuff getting on.
That's mostly the people's houses I've been in that said take your shoes off. They had children, and so I understood it when they've asked me to take my shoes off. And they had children. Now, if you live alone, probably wouldn't.
But even if you don't, though, I mean, just think about it. Somebody comes to your house with their shoes on, and then later on you're walking around barefoot, and then you're gonna get into your bed, with your bare feet, and because you've been walking around. I'm just saying, I know it's a very visceral thing to think about, but I'm just saying, man, for me, this story really hit home, and I wanted to talk about it today because I want the masses to know. I want all of KBLA's listeners to know and viewers to know that if you are not making people take off their shoes when they come to your house, then you may want to think that. You may want to rethink that. It's always okay to have new rules. New rules are okay sometimes. And Andy said, let them know in advance before arrival. And that's one way to go about doing it. But I think if you ask politely, it's not a big deal. People will certainly understand, especially if you tell them there's a 99% chance you got doo-doo on your shoes. So Isaac, let's before we run out of time, I want to talk about this Dave Chappelle special that's coming out New Year's Eve. He's made controversial statements and he's gotten himself into some trouble I personally think that he shouldn't be canceled. I'm kind of getting tired of him talking about the same stuff. For me, when it comes to the trans community, my stance is, why don't you just leave them alone? Why don't you just leave them alone and talk about something else? You're probably the greatest comedian of all time. You can talk about anything. So why not just talk about something else? It seems like he's kind of doing it just to kind of bother people now. And of course, he can do whatever he wants. But I just think, dude, you can talk about anything, talk about something else. But I'll probably still watch the special. But I just think it's just in poor taste, some of the things that he has said, and he could do better. But what are your thoughts?
I particularly don't like Dave Chappelle. I particularly don't think that Dave Chappelle is even funny. I probably laughed one time doing that special. And the only reason I watch this stuff is to know what's going on. When I'm reading the news and reading, blogs and stuff, I can actually know what they're talking about because I saw it. And then I can go and talk about it. But I'm not a Dave Chappelle fan. And yeah, that's that. I think he is. I think he has gotten a little erratic, and I think he's just saying some things because, like you said, he can, and he got a lot of money. And if you counsel him, who cares? He can still put a TV production company something together and still put it on YouTube. So it's not like he's going to be counseled for real, because people are going to find his stuff and they're going to do it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, well, I understand where you're coming from. I think he is usually very funny. He usually is, in my opinion, but there have been some of his specials lately that he kind of really just veers off and misses the mark, and just for no reason at all, other than, people love to attack the trans community, and I just think it's unnecessary. It's really just not necessary. Just leave them alone.
Let them be.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you want to close us out with? Where can we find you online?
You can find me at theisaac.wilsonproject.org, and you can find me on all social medias at Isaac Wilson.
Isaac, always appreciate your time and your perspective. Thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem. Anytime.
And we'll definitely look forward to talking to you again soon. When we come forward after this news, traffic, and sports update, we're going to be talking to Ray Richardson this hour, KBLA sports reporter. We're going to talk about Florida State not getting into the college football playoff. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is trying to sue the committee. He's trying to sue over this. We're going to talk about that, and also this NBA in-season tournament in which the Lakers are getting ready to participate in a semifinal game tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific. So we'll talk about those things with our resident sports expert, Ray Richardson, this hour when we come forward right after this news, traffic, and sports update right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A jury trial is underway for 2 Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department officers accused of using excessive force. Jonathan Horlock and Nathaniel Schwawecker were indicted in connection to an incident in May of 2020 during a Black Lives Matter protest in downtown Indianapolis.